I hear stuff like that and go, so if you've been sweeping floors for a year, you are doing something wrong, right? Not
Generally, yeah, but I think it's also like the motivation that you bring to work, right? Like if you're okay and just content with sweeping the floors all day and just waiting for your opportunity, to be given, and like waiting for them to go, hey, congratulations, like it's now been a calendar year, like there's no set date on it. But I think that's what a lot of people do wait for. And in my case, and through my parents' teachings and things like that, it was never wait. It was always like push, and I will just, in a sense, like harass you. Like I want to move up. I want to be better. So, how can I do this? And I've still implemented that to this date, where I will wait for the right opportunity per se, but I'm going to keep asking.
PeopleBuilt is bringing a light to the tradespeople in the industry who are often forgotten and consistently taken for granted. Construction industry matters. It's been fascinating now to be able to have the platform to meet the men and women who work in our construction industry. Their concerns matter. Welcome to the PeopleBuilt podcast. All right, welcome back to the PeopleBuilt podcast. Today, I'm joined by Zac Andryo, who's a journeyman automotive technician, and from the span of 15 years old up until 27, has done almost every aspect of what an automotive technician does through the wood group, and then including moving on to some management. So I'm excited to talk more about kind of what brought him into the role and why he's found quick success and kind of what factors have led into his career development and his goals. Zac, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So at 15 years old, you decide you want to work on cars. That's what happened?
Yeah, I kind of realized it was like, my professional career in like either hockey or football is not going to really take off. And I kind of really had a huge passion for cars. My dad had always talked about all the cars he had growing up and like, the 69 Camaros and 70 Mustangs and things like that. And I loved it. My uncle also restores cars. So I got to see a little bit of that side as well. He has a 70 Chevelle that I absolutely love sitting in, and it goes fast.
Now, were you working on cars with your uncle then at that point?
No, I had absolutely no trade experience whatsoever besides going around. My grandfather was a refrigeration tech. So I got to kind of go around with him kind of job to job back when we lived in Winnipeg and kind of see that at a young age, and realized like I was good with my hands, and I had a huge passion for cars. So started off actually doing grade 10 shop class. And that's really what got me into it. I rebuilt my first engine. It was a Chevy Blazer engine. And I think what really set me in was it still had a carburetor and it was actually shooting flames out the top. And I thought that was just wicked. And from then I was hooked.
Was it intentionally shooting flames out the top?
No, I definitely mucked something up. And yeah, it shouldn't have been doing that. But, cool. Guys, flames. It's fun.
And was that in Calgary you were doing it?
Yeah, so it was at my high school. So Bishop O'Byrne is where I went. And that was like first semester, grade 10. Like that's what really got me into school. Because I wasn't a big fan of high school, not a big fan of that style of learning for me personally. I like the more hands-on, like go to it. So I was doing welding class, shop class, construction / woodworking, like everything that I could physically do. I'd rather do that than sit at a desk.
Did you have good grades in your desk classes, or was that like...
No, my desk classes, I was a solid 60 average student.
Yeah.
But my trade side, I was high 90s.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a great difference.
What did you find, when you're in trade class, like how were the teachers preparing you for that next step, like in order to go work on cars professionally? Well, what is something that they did, or like how do they prep you for that?
I think they kind of especially for my mechanics teacher, he really saw that I had an actual passion for it and I excelled at it. So I think almost selfishly, he kind of really took me under his wing and gave me a little bit more roles at the actual shop. And then I was also helping out others because I was catching on a lot quicker. So I'd start right from the get-go pretty much. It's just I knew nothing about cars, but hey, go do this task. And he kind of just gave me that trust to do it myself. He saw how I learned. And then once I was successful at doing that, he kept just giving me more and more responsibility. So I was taking on a little bit more than the average classmate in grade 10 already. To which then he presented me. He's like, have you ever heard of the RAP program? Basically build yourself up through high school and get an early jump start on the career that you want to do. And right from there, I knew I wanted to do and be a mechanic. Like thought it was a lot of fun. Supercars too as well.
What did your parents feel about deciding that you wanted to be a mechanic? Like
They
early on.
They loved it. I think they were really excited that I already knew I had a career in mind. And versus finishing high school and then just going on to university just to basically get your foot in and then figure it out. They knew and like realized I had a passion and a goal. So I was able to like just follow that right off the bat. So I think they were very excited.
How easy was it for you to get a job out of high school then?
Surprisingly very easy because of the RAP program. So I didn't apply anywhere. I didn't even have a resume at that point yet. You basically sit down with one of your counselors and they're like, okay, what do you want to do and where do you see yourself? Like, do you have any specifications of like, you want to go into heavy duty or standard mechanics? And basically I just said to them, I want to do automotive and I'm open to anything. And I was a Dodge guy. Like my dad always drove a Dodge or a Chevy actually. But through the RAP program, they're like, hey, listen, the Wood Automotive Group at Woodridge Ford, they're looking for a RAP student, someone to clean the floors and the shop. Are you interested? And I was like, well, through my parents' insight, they're like, that's your way in. Like, you're not just going to work and jump on cars right away. You got to be the bottom of the barrel, shop clean, pick up after everybody, throw the metal out. So I went for that interview. They had to drive me there because I didn't even have my license yet.
How old were you?
I was 15.
Now, is that attitude uncommon? Like, do you find for like amongst your peers or for yourself, like that will it like to start sweeping floors, dumping metal out and being at the bottom? Like you said your parents pushed you come towards that. Was that?
Yeah, I've always been like goal driven and motivated like by work. I had my first job, I think at 13 at Marble Slab. Like I've always wanted to work. I find it far more enjoyable, like actually being, using your hands, like I said, instead of sitting at a desk. So getting me in early, like I was the only one in my personal peer group. And really not a lot of kids throughout my high school actually did it. I only met one other person through Woodridge, and he went to Grandin. And him and I were the same. We were both in the automotive program, and he also got hired the same time I did at Woodridge. So I've only met one other person like that.
So it's rare, that type of
I would say so, yeah.
path for success.
Yep.
What? How long were you sweeping floors for?
1 day.
1 day.
Yeah, 1 day. Because I was still in high school, obviously. I could only work Saturdays, and then once summer came around, it was full time. But I started off doing the Saturdays and pushing a broom, cleaning up after everybody. And my service manager had come over, and they're like, "Hey, we need to push a vehicle in. It's not going to start." And I was kind of a pretty high ego growing up, like I thought I was kind of the best already. So even though I was pushing a broom and cleaning the floors, I'm like, as a smart ass, I kind of said like, "Hey, like, why don't we just start the car?" And he's like, "Okay, like, go ahead, start it." And I'd done some research because I wanted to be successful already at the job and already move up. So, it was a push button key fob start, not something that you just put in the ignition to start. And I'm like, well, why don't we just put the key in the backup slot and do it? So he's like, okay, jump in and do it. And it worked. So I just drove the car right in front of my service manager, right into the shop for the one tech. Still not actually having my license yet, so probably shouldn't have done that. And the next day I got called into the office, or the following Saturday, I should say. And they're like, hey, listen, why don't you get some tools and jump on the lube rack? Like, why don't you start doing oil changes? And thankfully at that point, I was interviewed at 15, had about a month's time. And then I was 16, got my license right away. So I was able to actually start working on the cars.
What were you researching in order to make yourself successful? Because I think that's something, it's a disconnect, I think, from a lot of people where they feel like it's the company's obligation to teach you, right? What I'm hearing you say is like, in order for you to be successful, you recognize that you had to do some work before you even got there to be successful.
That was just an own personal goal of mine. Like, again, like my own ego, I wanted to be the best. So in order for me to do that, just seeing and being a fan of sports, really, you see everyone going that extra mile to make it further. So I wanted to do that. So I was honestly just researching like YouTube videos. Like, I work at Ford now. What are common Ford problems? How do you fix a Ford? It was very simple questions because I didn't know what to ask yet because I really knew nothing. And through YouTube and just random Google searches, I started learning a couple like little tips and tricks and those 15 cool tips to make your car better or faster or whatever. I was kind of using those, and one of them was that key fob issue, right? Where a lot of people, I guess the general public wouldn't necessarily know that, if their car doesn't start, they just automatically tow it into the dealership, where if maybe it's that quick little trick that saved you $200.
So Going back to like sweeping floors, you're there for one day, and they see something in you on the lube rack. How long have you seen people sweep floors for, like be on the bottom of the run?
Honestly, I think I got really accelerated.
Yeah.
And I got lucky at a lot of points in my life. Yes, but going through the standard procedure of it, but usually you'd see about it like a year or so, or maybe you do make it to the lube rack, but you're kind of maybe do one or two, but if, hey, they need you to take out this, you go do it first, right? Like that's more so your responsibility, but usually it's that year time.
So like, because I think that's important. So I hear stuff like that and go, so if you've been sweeping floors for a year, you are doing something wrong, right? No.
Generally, yeah, but I think it's also like the motivation that you bring to work, right? Like if you're okay and just content with sweeping the floors all day and just waiting for your opportunity, to be given, and like waiting for them to go, hey, congratulations, like it's now been a calendar year, like there's no set date on it. But I think that's what a lot of people do wait for. And in my case, and through my parents' teachings and things like that, it was never wait. It was always like push, and I will just, in a sense, like harass you. Like I want to move up. I want to be better. So, how can I do this? And I've still implemented that to this date, where I will wait for the right opportunity per se, but I'm going to keep asking, yeah, for anything.
What do you ask? What are kind of some common things more recently that you're asking for in order to push your career?
I'd say pretty much since I was 20, it was that sit down conversation with either my service manager or my shop foreman. It was like, how do I get into your position? What do I have to do? What courses do I have to take? Because I know usually the transition from a technician to a manager style role, like there's training in that, there's schooling in that. And I don't have it. So it was more so just that constant questioning of like, hey, like, should I start taking night classes? What do I have to research? Like, if I'm going to be moving into this role, what do I need to know? Because, especially if you go to like a foreman type role, like you're now in charge of the shop, you're in charge of the people. So, I think you should be knowledgeable in the standpoint of if a shop's divided into certain specialties and categories, like in our shop, for instance, like we have a transmission specific guy, we have electrical diagnostic techs, we have a diesel guy. As a foreman, I think you should have at least a general knowledge of the majority of everybody in the shop to be successful. So I knew that I had to get that type of schooling already, but that's only part A of being that foreman. Part B is now handling the people, handling the problems. So, what do I need to better myself for that? And like I said, it was constantly almost harassing them. Like, hey, what do I need to do? Like, can we sit down and have a conversation? And I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing for it. And really, like, no would come up very often. You kind of just had to like persevere through that and be like, okay, like by the 10th or 20th time, they'll either start taking me seriously or they'll have that sit down conversation, or they'll realize that, hey, I'm not just your average tech. I want to succeed and become better than that.
What would be an example of a no? Like, what would you ask and get a no?
A lot of the times, so at least through the wood group, they're really good at doing training for everyone's role, right? Like whether you're a cash office person, a lube rack, or an advisor, like they want to try and see you succeed as best as possible. So they'll actually put the money forward and go like, hey, there's training courses that we can sign people up for. And one of them that I kept asking for was service advisors go for training. And I was like, can I sit down for that? Because that's a lot of like customer experience, handling the front end of our like computer site to, booking the appointments and things like that. I'm like, can I go? Can I go? Can I go? And finally they were like, okay, like clearly he's interested. He wants to go.
How many times did you ask? And how many no's did you get?
I don't even know if I could count realistically. Cause like I said, it's been 20 to 26. I was asking at least monthly, sometimes weekly, and sometimes twice or three times a week. Cause I'm like, I see they're going for it. Like, is there an open slot? Did someone cancel? Is someone not here today? Can I go?
So like 6 years of no? Or 5 years of no's?
I would say probably 5 years of no. But it wasn't necessarily like a hard no. It was like, okay, work with us and see what you can do. Or see what we can do for you.
But 5 years is a long time. Like, so like, why didn't you quit and go somewhere else for someone to take your education more seriously then? If you couldn't get the course there after asking for 5 years, right?
I think it's because they were sending me in other places as well.
Okay.
Again, like I was asking to branch out and not just be a technician anymore. But they were still sending me to like Ford specific schooling and things like that. And there's also like offsite training that we do through Ford, where you go into a classroom, there's 12 guys, and you learn specifically about the newest technology for Ford. So, if they release a new transmission, they release a new course with it. And you go to that for 3-4 days and you learn everything about that transmission. So I was still going to classes like that. So I still saw my knowledge expanding and my career still advancing, because once you start learning the more specifics, that's when you start becoming a specialized technician. Because you have your general technicians that'll do, your brakes and your basic suspension, oil changes, things like that. But then again, when you get that breakdown of they call it like the high tech rate of, you specialize in just doing the transmission rebuilds, or you just look at, for the last 7 years, I've been doing like networking, no starts, like any communication problems. But you don't just get to do that right off the bat. Like, not your average person could per se like figure that out. They need that schooling and that training to get there. Because anyone can do it.
Yeah.
But it's hard to just jump into a role and say, okay, here, figure this out. Well, you know nothing about it.
And especially because you're playing on somebody's vehicle too.
Well, and technically, like, there is lives at stake, right? Like, if you don't fix a vehicle correctly, you could have a wheel fly off, and that could be very problematic, right?
Now, you brought up like your theory on management is that you should have a general knowledge of what everybody underneath you does, right? So you may not be the know-it-all when it comes to diesel or transmission, but you should have a general knowledge of what each guy does in order to manage them.
Yep.
Have you been managed by somebody who has no idea what you're doing, or how have you come to this?
Yeah, so I've definitely seen throughout my entire career, I've had probably, I'd say 3 or 4 service managers and about 6 or 7 shop foremans, and you can really tell who's kind of come up almost in the same way I have, where they started cleaning floors, so they know even that basic principle of like how to keep a shop clean. And then you see the guys that kind of just went to the schooling side of it and then thrown right into it. And you can see when you try and talk with them, have discussions, or, when I get stuck on a vehicle, because like everyone does, talking to a shop foreman, if they have no knowledge of the communication side, like they can ask you the basic questions, you check power and ground and things like that. But, you can definitely tell there's that heightened sense when you get someone that's knowledgeable about the situation, where they're like, okay, you've been doing testing this way. Have you tried doing it, in the opposite way? Or have you looked at this, the big issue with network communication is like pin fit and things like that, where it's something very simple, but if the pins don't sit, exactly right, if they keep wiggling and stuff like that, like that's where you're getting that dropout, where you can get stuck on a vehicle for 20-30 hours and you really just lose your mind. And it takes something as simple as someone else that knows a little bit about it going, hey, I ran into this issue before, like maybe try this.
And so what about being managed for having a guy above you who doesn't have that knowledge? What was that like as a technician then? What is it like? Yeah, how does it feel as a technician being managed by someone who...
It can definitely be frustrating, just because, again, like in my mind, I'm expecting, my higher ups, again, if we're talking foreman, right? Like they should have that general knowledge of everything. So when I go to them and have that question and they go, I don't know if I can help you. The good thing about the shop that I was at is there was 2 or 3 electrical guys as well, and everyone in the shop as a whole was very knowledgeable. So you basically just had to start bouncing ideas off them, which it's good because we have that ability and that option to, at least kind of shoot back and forth with someone. Just sometimes you need to talk about the situation and the problem at hand, and then something clicks for you. And that's the majority of the time what it is for me. But it is a bit more frustrating when the person that you're supposed to go to can't help. So then you're looking elsewhere to find somebody that can help you. And sometimes it's asking 3 or 4 guys in the shop.
So if you're that guy, if you're the guy who came through a different path, they didn't come up from the floor, and like, what advice do you have for someone who's managing people where they're not the technical expert?
I would say, like, get into it more, be more hands-on. Like actually, I understand like their role, they still have responsibilities doing other things, but in your free time, again, if you want to succeed and excel, and like what I plan on doing when I'm taking over, is just like getting a little bit more hands-on with the guys, like, sitting around their bay for 15-20 minutes, seeing what they actually do, asking questions, because 90% of the people in the trades community are very open to talking and discussing with you, and usually they're fairly passionate about what they do. Like you get some guys that they are just there for a paycheck, but usually people go into their industry because they like a part about it. So you get to if you talk with them for a little bit, like you can really see that they're passionate and highlight what they're good at. And I think that can really help you learn.
So how would that feel? Like if your manager like basically comes down, like you're working on something and he's the guy who doesn't have that background knowledge that you know, and he comes down and says, hey, like, how does that look like from your perspective? Like, what's the best way for that guy to approach you to try to like learn from you? Because obviously that's a power imbalance. Whereas now you got like your boss going, hey, can you teach me? That's what I'm picturing. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Kind of, yeah. But it's not necessarily like they're coming up and just like asking like, hey, I know nothing about it. In some cases that does happen, but I'm also very open to that. I have no issue with that whatsoever because I would rather someone ask questions. When I came up through the apprenticeship, like I had pretty much one specific journeyman that taught me, but I also went up to absolutely everybody that I could and was like, hey, how do you do this? Or what are you doing? Can I help? Like, I think it's getting and showing that initiative that you want to be there and you want to learn more. And again, like I don't personally have an issue with it. I've yet to see someone in our shop that does. And it's kind of like that pay it back mentality where I bugged somebody for 3 or 4 years when I went through that apprenticeship and they were very nice to me. They helped me out. They never really got frustrated with me because I am learning and I don't know any of this. So I like to pay that back where whether it's an apprentice or a boss or like even a customer that can come into the back of the shop, like I'm more than happy and willing to explain what's going on, why it's going on. And, hopefully that they get a better understanding of it so that it makes also my job easier then too, right?
Are there things that like because I like contrasting these two managers, right? It's like, is there somebody who came up through a different path, right? Like so who's not the technical expert?
Yeah.
What value are they bringing that the guy who came up through the traditional path, like, if the guy doesn't have the technical expertise, is there something else that he brings that you're like, oh man, I'm happy this guy has this, even though he doesn't have the technical side?
Yeah, I definitely think like flow of the shop and like and how the actual structure of the business is managed. So again, like mainly in mechanics, it's flow. Like how many appointments do we book in? What can we get through the shop? Like, do you realize that we booked in a bigger job? If you're doing like an engine replacement, that's not the same as an oil change. So I think they bring a lot of structure, and just like really insight into the customer's brain because you'll get someone that comes in where they have an intermittent concern. They're like, hey, listen, like sometimes my heated seat works, sometimes it doesn't. And they're able to bring that in and go, okay, like we obviously know it's a problem, but we know that if it's an intermittent concern, it's going to take a little bit longer for us to diagnose because we have to duplicate it, right? Like, I don't want to go ahead and just throw any parts at your vehicle in hopes that it fixes it, right? Like I want to actually, in a sense, break it to the point where it's not intermittent anymore. Like I want to make sure you have a hard faulted problem so I can go, okay, I know for sure that it's this, or at least give them a path to go down. And I think like between someone that's had experience in the shop and someone that doesn't is they can basically get you in the door when they don't have that experience. And, a foreman type role where they have that long-term exposure to fixing those concerns. They can go, okay, listen, like you only booked in for like our standard hour diagnostic. In reality, we're going to need more than that. So again, like they work well together where he thinks it's 1 hour, he thinks it's 2. So let's go with someone who's had the experience with it and we'll negate or book one less appointment to get rid of that extra hour. So we have that time to go in.
Interesting. I think that like one, like good for you because we didn't talk about that question in advance,
Oh yeah.
right? But to be able to identify that, because I think there's a big challenge amongst managers, right? Like, and you see these paths where it's like I think it's easy at times to manage people. Like if I know more than my staff, it's easier to manage it, right? But then I also manage people where I am absolutely not the technical expert.
Yep.
And it's a completely different management style. Like what am I supposed to bring? What value do I bring as a manager and as a leader? Right? And then how then do you make the people underneath you aware as well? Like when they're leading people who know more than them of what they're doing, right? Or as peers, like that peer mentorship and peer leadership when you don't have when you're not signing guys paychecks.
I think a lot of it, like come into it humbly and open-minded. Like realize, and I do this too with any aspect really of my life, regardless of work even. If you go into it and go, okay, listen, like I don't know what you're doing right now. Can you at least talk me through that process so we don't run into said issue again? That's where I find a management or any manager really thrives when they can just openly say, hey, I don't know what's going on. Like, what are you doing? Versus them going, hey, our standard isn't an hour for diagnosis. Like, why are you on this for 3 hours? You should be already moved on. Like, we're already behind. Like that puts a lot of stress, and then it builds, in a sense, like a bit of resentment towards them because they don't understand the process of things. Whereas again, if they come in and go, hey, like, why are you taking 3 hours? Oh, okay, good. Like, good to know for next time. That's a much better manager, in my opinion. And that's the experiences that I've had.
So basically, if you like as a manager, as a leader, if you have a question about like if something's gone wrong, so we'll use a scenario where the technician spent 3 hours solving a 1 hour problem, right?
Yep.
So on paper, it's a 1 hour problem. The guy's been there 3 hours, and you kind of said the same question in two different ways, but it's, hey, like the right way to ask that from your opinion is, hey, can you help me understand why this is taking you 3 hours? What else is going on?
Yeah.
Versus, hey, like you've taken 3 hours, like this, like we got other jobs here, like you got it, like you got to solve this problem.
Yeah, you can definitely see some people just go like, hey, move on. Like, we're on a time crunch. You're here for a designated amount of time to do a designated amount of vehicles, and you're expected to do so. And again, like that's where you don't want to stay late to help out. You don't want to go that extra mile. Sometimes like I end up skipping lunch, but I'm more open to doing those types of things when I know someone's appreciating the work that's being done or the process that's being done. Because I'm not a big fan of taking those shortcuts where, let's say a misfire, for instance, right? You get that code for cylinder 1 misfire. Some guys will just look at it and go, well, you're going to need spark plugs. And if that doesn't fix it, then we'll look at something else afterwards. Whereas, again, take that hour diagnostic that you're being paid for and really look into the vehicle. Because what happens if, you go to replace those plugs and you realize the coil is burnt or broken, it was as simple as took 2 minutes for you to realistically look at, but you're not putting in that effort to do so because you're on that time crunch to get things done fast.
So you played as a flat rate.
Yes.
So you get paid for an hour diagnostic and you can diagnose the spark plug in 3 minutes. You're getting paid for that full hour, even though.
Yeah. So, but it goes both ways, right? So again, you can take 5 minutes into a diagnosis and realize what's going on and what the problem is and sell that job. Or you can go into it and, for 3-4 hours, if you don't get that authorized extra time, like you're technically doing it for free, and obviously like people are willing, as long as you can explain the process that you did, it's easier for them to justify spending the extra money for that diagnostic than, hey, your networking concern found this, needs this. You write a two-worded report. They're kind of wondering where 3 hours went, right? Whereas the big thing for me that I was taught pretty much in my first year of apprenticeship was make sure you write everything that you did, and it got to the point where they, like, when I was practicing it was like I pulled the vehicle in. Well, they're obviously going to know that I'm doing that. Like I have to get into the shop somehow, but I'm writing that in the story because I'm walking you through the entire routine of what we do for you so that you're feeling comfortable with spending the money to fix that vehicle.
Where did you learn that?
Through my journeyman, actually. His name's Stefan.
Yeah.
Phenomenal guy. Like I owe him a lot because he really took me to a new level, and he was a person that just gave a shit. He was a journeyman that wanted to see his younger successors succeed. And like, that's what he instilled in me. So that's why, like, any opportunity that I can, I try and pull over an apprentice and be like, listen, this is what I'm doing. You don't see this very often, but you're going to remember this 8 years down the road where.
And so like going back to like the detailed notes and troubleshooting, because I know like troubleshooting is one of the hardest things to do in any industry, right? Because I'm not a vehicle expert by any stretch, but within our own like plumbing mechanical side, there's absolutely like you're 5 minutes into diagnosing of a problem, 80% of the signs point to, like an inducer fan or a pressure switch or something else.
Yep.
We try to encourage our guys, I don't know, be thorough.
Yeah.
Like before you just swap something, like go through the chain and do that. And it's amazing how much resistance at times we get from our field guys who do not want to be that thorough. They don't want to go through that process because they're so confident that it's this thing. And then also alternatively too, when you talk about that, taking the client along for the ride.
Yep.
You know what? I brushed the snow off the car. I brought it inside, right? Set it all up, like, and then really a sequential, like, this is how I got through the troubleshooting.
Yep.
And I think what I see, there's tremendous value for the client because you're walking them through it, but it also builds in some inherent accountability for yourself. Because as you're writing those steps, you're more likely to go, oh crap, I haven't checked this.
Yep.
Like,
Oh, absolutely. And again, like you build this routine up in your head because like diagnosis, whether you're doing a seat or a no start, the routine and the system is pretty much the same. You still have to start at step 1 and proceed to step 10.
is it written like at the wood group? Are these steps written down, or do you have to memorize them, or like what? Like how much is like high structure on paper, and how much is like your experience?
Yes and no. Like it's mainly through like through the Ford world because a lot of what we do is warranty, right? Like at a dealership, there's not as much like customer pay. They're bringing it off their warranty system. Like, um, and that's kind of where a lot of it was talked about. You go to school and Ford has a routine that you're supposed to follow, right? You want to confirm that the problem's happening. You want to check Oasis, which is Ford's like hub. Are there any related like TSBs, SSMs, GSMs?
What do those words mean?
So like technical service bulletins. So these are like Ford's common problems, right? So you get a vehicle in where, let's say, again, your heated seat's not working on a 2024 Escape. Through the warranty system, you realize every job gets tracked across the world. So if they start running into a common problem where they see, for instance, like new Escapes have an all-wheel drive problem where the module just stops communicating randomly. Well, if Ford's seen that now 100, 200, 300 times, they're going to really look into that and go, okay, like why are all these failing? Like as a whole, the vehicle's great, but we're running into this one issue. And now we've seen 300 of them where they need all-wheel drive modules. So they'll actually like take their engineering team and they'll really look into it and go, oh, like we shouldn't be replacing them. We just messed up some of the software. So they'll release what's called a TSB. And you'll go into that and you'll scan for codes, realize I have this code in the all-wheel drive module. Well, this code directly correlates with, hey, update the software, do not replace the module. And it makes it a little bit easier. Like they kind of help you out a lot. Like Ford's really good for helping their technicians solve their problems.
Well, I think that's an interesting point, because I think as a consumer, and I hope like people who are not technically sound, or like they're experiencing like people who are troubleshooting their equipment, either their vehicle, and I'm a mechanical background, like so plumbing, furnaces, boilers.
Yep.
Right. And how often we hear from clients that their discomfort that like our technicians are calling the manufacturer, right? Like they're calling the troubleshooting lines. And I tell them like, no, like that's where the wealth of knowledge is.
Yeah.
Like, you're a Ford service technician trained in Ford process, working at a Ford dealership, working only at Ford's, and your standard procedure is check with Ford to see if they've got problems.
Exactly.
And I think it's helping people really understand that that's the strength of the technician, having the courage and the humility to recognize that the likelihood that you know all this is much smaller than checking to see if there's a technical service bulletin on this one error code, even though the error code is given. Like you could, I imagine, go down a troubleshooting path without calling, without checking, and it puts yourself and the client at risk because you're not as thorough, because you're not checking that depth of knowledge.
No, exactly. And again, like these aren't, on book the best things to possibly do, right? Like for instance, like that update could potentially not fix that exact vehicle. Like it might still need the module.
Yeah.
Right. But they're basically trying to paint you a better path as to like, hey, what would you look at? Because a lot of the times, like a technician or anybody really, you're not going to look for a software update for the vehicle to fix said concern. Because especially now with vehicles, like when you have 30 plus modules in a vehicle, it tends to often be a software glitch or programming issue that resolves that concern. But a lot of people don't realize that. And like you said as well, like the humility of you're able to reach out to somebody. Like in my personal opinion, like Ford has some of the best engineers to work with. When I'm dealing with these networking issues that, again, I'm losing my mind on, I'm 30, 40 hours into the vehicle, and there's hundreds of feet of wire in a car now. And there's wiring harnesses that are the thickness of my arm. And you have to find that one wire that's broken. You can now directly contact the engineering team at Ford and go, hey, listen, I have this problem. I've checked all of this. And again, like they're in that sense, that additional shop foreman where they're just getting you to check a different routine or a different area or something that you might not have thought of. Because like Ford's case, they'll give you a pinpoint test where, you got to check your power, your ground, shorts to power, shorts to ground. You're checking the continuity of your wires. But it's a very basic pinpoint test. Like all of it leads up to the same type of stuff. Again, you check your 4 issues. Okay, well, if that doesn't fix it, replace the sensor, replace the module. Or if you find that area, it just goes in very basic terms, repair that circuit. If I find a short to ground and the wires go from the front of the bumper all the way to the back, they're not telling you where to go. So again, like that's where that engineering team can come in there and go, hey, listen, like we've had 10 other people reach out about this concern where it's not enough to create a TSB, but it's enough that we recognize there's an issue going on and it's in this area. Maybe go check there. And like that'll help your routine and you get through that job a lot better in a lot less time. Because at the same, like when you're doing warranty work, Ford's paying you to do it. The customer, it's nothing out of their pocket. But they want to also make sure, just like a customer, like, are you sure that it's this part? Because they don't want to put that part in and go, okay, what also needs this, this, and this, right? And that's where that thoroughness of don't just take the 5 minutes because you think it's going to be a spark plug on a misfire. You want to actually go through that and go, did you check all the coil circuits? You know, did you check your fuel? Maybe your intake's plugged. Like it could be something very simple and you're getting a very simple code for it where there could be like a multitude of issues. And again, like you have that hour routine, use that hour routine to get through it and check everything that you can.
Is your attitude common to your peers? Like, do you find like your willingness to reach out and look for answers, look for help elsewhere? Is that really consistent across the shop floor, or are you special in some way?
I would say, at least in my situation, you know, I've been really, it's been really great actually. A lot of the guys are like that. And I think that's where I got a lot of my attitude from growing up in the shop because I was there for 10 years. So they instilled a lot of that good knowledge into me where it's like, it's okay to ask for help. Like you're not the best, right? And then you have to kind of like leave your ego at the door that as much as I'm the diagnostic tech and I'm the guy to go to for the situation, I might not be for every single case. So again, like it's that openness in the shop as well that you can go talk to somebody else. Cause I've been at other dealers where you try and talk to the guy and they tell you to go away because they're trying to make their hours. Cause flat rate, if you're not working on a job, you're not getting paid. Like, you know, you clean your bay on your own time type idea. And some of the guys will be like that where it's like, just go away. Like I'm here to make my 8 hours and I'm going home. But again, in this current shop that I'm at Advantage, everyone's gracious enough to help you. Like everyone's open arms accepting.
Why? Like why is the culture like that?
I just think it's like through the higher ups, like basically the atmosphere that they wanted to bring to it. Like they don't want hostility. No one really does in a job environment, right? Like you want to go to work, you spend majority of your day there, 5 days, 6 days a week sometimes because we're open Saturdays. You want to have a very inviting shop. Like you want to make sure it's fun for people, right? You want to enjoy yourself.
So, but if you've been in places or if you're aware of places that don't have that same culture, what's the difference? Like, because for you, it's obvious that you want that culture, but obviously at some other places, they don't feel the same way or they can't create that environment. What would be the difference? Like,
I think it's just like from the lack of like the stepping stones building up to how you design and run a shop, right? Like again, it comes down to it. Like if your boss is going to be very to himself, figure it out yourself. Like, you know, this is your job. If you can't do your job, why are you here? And like, that's been some of the mentality at different shops. Whereas, you know, when we have our weekly or bi-weekly shop meetings, it's kind of like, hey, like, what have you run into? Any issues you got going on? Like, what can we do to help? And I think that's probably one of the biggest questions is their open door policy of like, hey, if you have that issue, come talk to me. Whereas other places, they're like, we hired you to do diagnostics. You should be doing diagnostics. Like, why aren't you doing it? You know?
and then so on places that have that type of culture of like, we hired you diagnostics, that's your job. There's less teamwork at the field level or in front of the vehicles. There's just less teamwork. You're more likely to find a guy and be like, man, like I'm here to collect my 8 hours. I'm doing my billable time. Figure it out yourself.
Yeah, when you can also see that too, like when you build like just relationships with any of the guys or girls in the shop, right? Like you go to a shop like that and it's kind of like, do your job, eat your lunch alone. Yeah, you know, if you have like a friend or two, right? Because it's not everybody across the board. It's usually just like a handful of people. But it's also the trickle down effect that if everyone starts being grumpy, you're inevitably also going to become grumpy. You know, how do you avoid that more so than, again, like at Advantage where everyone's relatively like happy to be there, happy to help. And again, open door policy. You have that issue, come talk to us.
Which model's better for the client?
I would say the open door policy. Because again, I think that just builds better flow through the shop. If you're happier at work, you tend to be more confident. And if you're not confident in the job you're doing, you have that option and ability to reach out to somebody. So I think you're just overall getting a better like record on your vehicle of like, we care. So we're going to go that extra mile to help you out. And if we can't figure it out, we will all figure it out. Right. Like,
So then which model is better for the technician?
I would also agree the open door policy. Again, you want to, if you spend majority of your time at work, you want to enjoy it. Like, a lot of people, you'd say that, they're at their job, 80-90% of them will say, I'm there for the paycheck. I'm there to pay my mortgage, pay my rent, whatever. Whereas here, it's kind of like, I get to go to work. I get to work on a vehicle. I can go talk to some guys for a couple minutes, shoot the shit, have a good time. And I'm happier. And then when I get to a frustrating vehicle where, again, it's taking me that couple hours versus my standard hour, I'm a little bit more accepting of it, because if I need to take a break, I can go talk to somebody and just like relax for a minute. And I think that builds better flow. And then overall, you just, you're paid your 8 hours more often than not, right? Because again, being flat rate, you can kind of lose your mind a little bit, where you get stuck on a vehicle and it's up to you to figure out, and you're hammering away and you can't do it. You're still at that 1 hour mark. And then that's when people get in their head and they're like, okay, it's now lunchtime. I've been here for 4 hours and I've booked 1 hour worth of work. I need to start rushing. I need to start getting through it. And like, that's where mistakes happen. That's where like lack of diagnostics, like you don't go into as much depth. And then like, unfortunately, like, and it happens with everybody, you're not going to fix every single vehicle the first time right all the time. Like, everyone has mistakes.
Do you think it's on your own time? If a vehicle comes back that you got paid your 2 hours, let's say, and it's the same problem, are you fixing that on your own time?
So some shops will be like that. And it's kind of dependent on case to case. If you go in and you put in a very lackluster story where it's just like, scan this for a code, has this problem, fix it. And it's a one sentence fix. They're going to realize maybe that you didn't really go into it. So they might ask you and be like, listen, like, this is kind of on you now. You did basically nothing. You just kind of guessed. Because that's really what it would be.
Yeah.
Whereas, again, if you write that good story and you show all the steps that you went through, and you're kind of just, again, losing your mind, where it's an intermittent concern, you don't exactly know when it always happens. And again, we try our best to really, in a sense, break that vehicle fully to find that problem. If you can show that and kind of go up to them and be like, hey, listen, like, I've basically exhausted all my options, they're more willing to work with you. Because again, like, everyone's very open, and they understand. Again, it's not a clear cut and concise process of scan, fix, move on. Like, there's a lot of in-betweens there that not a lot of people, maybe on the customer side more so, really see, unless you paint them that picture through that story.
It makes sense. So you're about to embark on a new challenge in your career. You're going from like competent field technician, right? You understand the process. You're humble. You'll reach out for help, respected by your peers and your boss. Now you're gonna go manage. What do you manage? Like, what's the next step in your career?
So I'm now taking over at Word Tires and managing the whole automotive side and operations of the shop now. So it's going to be a team of 5 guys. I'm hoping to bring it up to 7. So a lot different than what I'm coming from, because any of the dealerships that I've worked at, you're looking like minimal 20 techs. Then, that's not including Lubrac or anything. That's just journeyman. I think that would have been probably semi-overwhelming for me to take on that leadership role with so many people. And also a lot of people being, almost double my age in some cases. Whereas like the role that I'm working in with now, again, smaller shop, we're 5 guys right now, and they're all around the same age as me. So I think a lot of it, like, going into it, I just want to be very, very open, and also show them that I'm at this place in my life for a reason. I'm not just coming in going, now I'm the boss, I'm the best, because that's really not the case, right? Like, there's going to be guys even in that shop that know a lot more than me in other areas, right? Like, again, being a diagnostic tech for 7 years, I don't think I've done an alignment on a vehicle since school. So again, like, that's in a sense, like, it's new to me. Like, have I done it? Yes, but it's been 7 years. So I have to be, open and willing to learn from them, basically how to redo those kind of things, right? Like, something as simple as that.
Yeah, because you're walking into an environment, so it'll be a new company, like, obviously the new guys to manage, like, similar in age. I guess, what are you most worried about? Or what are the top concerns going into this new role?
Top concerns, I think, just people taking me seriously. Because again, like, even that comes down to the customer side of things, right? Like, you're looking at a young person talking to you about your vehicle and why I want you to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on your vehicle. Like, they tend to take insight and knowledge from older people easier because they have, more experience in life or what have you. And I'm coming at it as a young gun, and hey, then, this is what you need. And I think there's going to be a lot more questioning of my credibility at the start. So again, it's really proving myself, and like, I'm not a stranger. Like I'll go pick up the tools and show you guys, like, again, I was there. I've been with Ford for 12 years. Like I've done everything in the shop, and like, let me show you that I can do it, so that you can get a little bit more trust in me to run and manage how we do things.
When it comes to the client side and being able to communicate with clients who need to spend thousands of dollars on a vehicle and they're taking that from a young guy, how do you plan on handling that in your first couple months, right, where you have the least experience at the company and least experience in dealing with clients?
Again, I think I just take it from like the symptom system component cause that Ford had taught me. Like, let me break it down for you as to, again, I'm not just going to walk up to you and go, here's that quote for spark plugs, you just need them. Like, I want to explain to you why your car's broken. I want to explain to you what had happened. And I can't, like, a lot of the times you can't explain why a part broke per se, like, unless it's like physical damage, say you ran over something. But like, how do you normally explain to a customer that, hey, this electrical component just stopped working? And like, unfortunately, it's $3,000. Again,
How do you explain that to a client?
well, I think it just comes down to like, listen, like, we've now exhausted and tested every aspect of the vehicle that leads up to said component, right? Like, we know that it has good power there. We know that you have a good ground so it can communicate. We've tested the wires where they're not shorted to anything. They don't have corrosion on them. Your fuse isn't popped, right? Like, something that simple where if I can explain to you that I've tested and exhausted every option leading up to it, it's not me saying that I know for a fact that it's this exact component because of this problem. I can just tell you that, hey, everything else works in the vehicle, but this still doesn't, right? So if everything else is tested, we should be very, 99% sure, unless you have those intermittent concerns and problems, that this is what you need.
You have somebody above you in this new role who is that like seasoned veteran who can provide the client like some confidence that like, if you've gone through your process of trying to articulate what the problem was and how you guys have come to that conclusion, why the client needs to move forward, and the client still goes, well, like, hey, like, can I talk to somebody with more experience, right?
Yeah, there definitely is somebody in that role, but even throughout my career, I've always tried to interact with the customer as much as possible. I love talking, and I love talking about things I'm passionate about, and I'm passionate about mechanics and fixing your car, and in that sense, again, being the best. Like, I haven't achieved it, but I always want to be the best. So I try and take every opportunity that I can and talk to the customers. And 90% of the time, like, surprisingly enough, they would rather talk to the technician that's actually working on their vehicle, because I'm now hands-on and I have that experience with your car and your problem. So I've really never run into any issues of people going like, you are too young to be giving me this advice. A lot of the times they kind of look at me and go, I didn't think you would know that much, which is, it's a nice compliment to hear. And again, like, I have yet to really run into an issue of someone just going like, I don't want to talk to you because, of the way you are.
No, and generally speaking, I find too, like, and you come across very confident, and a lot of times when people have like these interactions where they feel like the client doesn't trust them, a lot of it just comes back to confidence, and it is the way a lot of times those messages are delivered. And so being able to walk clients through like, this is how we got here in a very in a comfortable way, and then having the courage to either answer questions directly when you know them, or going, listen, good question, I don't have that answer, I'll go get it.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned something too, a lot of your career has been based on like, you're working on the vehicle, the vehicle. So when you're talking to the client about the vehicle, going into a new role of managing staff, that's going to get less and less. Your familiarity with the actual problem will get less. What do you think that's going to be like for you as you start having to trust your guys underneath you, and then you're delivering the message to the client?
I think it comes with a lot of time and kind of building up, almost a reputation of like, we're not just like half-assing what we're doing here, right? Like, I need to see, I think, how the guys work, and maybe I can tweak or just give them options, different paths to go down, where it's like, hey, listen, like, I know we've been doing this, certain routine for a long time, but it's a very vague and simplistic routine. Like, let's get a little bit more in depth and really bring that dealership mentality to a smaller shop, because a lot of people, again, they only go to the dealership for their warranty. Normally, you don't see a lot of like, people coming off of that. They go to the private shops because they tend to just naturally be cheaper. But they're usually cheaper because they don't have that like special qualifications that dealership technicians or managers go through.
And it makes sense. Like, when you have is a lot of money in that process. And it's a lot of time when you're trying to drive that thoroughness and when you're going like through the channels of referring back to the manufacturing and making phone calls a lot.
Yep.
It's a very time intensive process that doesn't always show a client that you're working on their project.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of back end, right?
And so trying to, and I like how you've really connected that process is what drives trust for the client.
Yep.
And so maybe that upfront cost with somebody is cheaper, but there might be a sour taste in your mouth when they get it wrong. Right? So if they get it right, nobody cares.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it's wrong, it's like, well, what did you do? Well, we tried this, we tried this. Well, why? And you get the why. And it's that process ultimately when you've documented well and you've gone through back with the manufacturer, and I know on our end, that's where people go, oh, well, I don't like it, but I understand it.
Yeah. When I think a lot of it too, you're kind of coaching your customer basis as well. Like if you get heartfelt concerns, it's a much easier time to diagnose because the problem's always there. But let's say, like, for instance, an intermittent concern and you're off warranty and you're going to the customer, like they have to shell out their own money for this now. A lot of it is prepping them where, hey, listen, we've gone through and we've checked, X, Y, Z. You have to be honest with them and go, listen, like this is what we think it is, but do be prepared that if this is not the problem or like not the fix, that we might have to go into this further. And I think you give a little bit of like prepping it and preemptive warning of, we're 90% sure. And like, again, you have to be honest with that process because a lot of the times you can't be 100% sure that is the only thing or the only problem and it will fix that concern entirely.
I think that's all troubleshooting.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's people want the hard and fast answer. Like, well, what is it?
Yep.
Can't like there's a complicated vehicle, right? There's hundreds of feet of wire, like there's cables like this one wire could be doing, and we have no idea where it is, like it or where that problem is. And then to be able to confidently articulate that you're the right person to fix it. And also it may not be an easy solution.
No, and that's exactly it, right? And also you can have like multi-symptom issues where, again, if your check engine light comes on and your wrench light, but you're only getting, let's say, this one code for, a transmission, and you go in and you replace that component, that could fix the check engine light, but your wrench light's still there. So again, like you have to really articulate to them that it looks like you have multiple issues that could potentially be fixed by one problem.
Mm-hmm.
But we could also kind of just be knocking it off one at a time where, again, we'll get rid of one of the lights for you, but unfortunately the other three are staying.
Where did you learn that? Like, that's a lot of like tact with the client. So you're still a young guy. So where have you learned to communicate with clients like this?
Just basically my dealership allowing me to do that. Again, like I love going up and talking to the customer about like why I'm doing what I'm doing. I didn't just go to school for my own personal gain. Obviously it helps me in work, but it also helps me. Like I love talking to people. So even just like, I want to experience the customer's concern more so, because a lot of the cases you'll get into vehicle issues where it's like, it's a wind noise where it's a personal thing, like not everyone can hear it, but when you're driving here, you hear this noise. So I'll actually go down and sit with them and talk to them, because sometimes it's not even talking to them about how I'm going to fix their vehicle. I'm more so wanting to talk to them about like, why do they think their vehicle is broken or making this noise, or what noise, or when, really getting like that in depth. And once they explain it to you, sometimes you can come back at them and be like, well, listen, like everything you're experiencing is completely normal. Let me show you why. So, you go, it's great being at a dealership because, again, like for Ford, I work for Ford on Fords, and we have Fords for sale on our lot. So some of the cases, and my boss has been great about doing this, is like, I'll just take them out in the exact same model that we have on the lot and go, listen, like this is also happening here. Like, and that usually eases their mind a lot more when they might think this is a problem, but you go, hey, this is across all of them. Either A, there's nothing we can do. And unfortunately, sometimes they're not happy about that. But sometimes they go, oh, like I just like my previous model or different vehicle doesn't do this.
Yeah. So like, what did you look at from a career standpoint? You identified fairly early on that you were not going to be a mechanic, like on the tools for the entirety of your career. You started establishing goals early on that were going to put you off the tools. What did you see in the industry that showed you that was not a long-term path for you?
I just saw some of the guys and girls in the shop that were, again, like they just looked more aged than what they were, because it is like physical labor. So it's demanding on your body. And I knew, like, again, I had that process of a lot of the general guys seem to be more rugged and hardened over the years than someone like an electrical guy, where I'm not picking up tires or whacking a hammer. I am sitting there with the finite wires and more so using my brain power than my physical body power to fix a vehicle. And so I saw that and I was like, I knew I wanted to get into that element sooner than later, because again, I think that saves my body long term, because I still do activities after work. I go hiking, go fishing, I play sports with my friends. Like, I want to still be able to do that. And I see some of the guys in the shop that they're like 35, like young guys, and they just ache and they're in pain and they're, taking whatever just to sleep pretty much. And I'm like, I don't like that. Like, it's grueling. And, you work outside, like sometimes you get those no starts. It's like -40 and you're laying under a vehicle in snow. Like, that does take a toll on your body long term. And I'd rather preserve my body. And it also keeps me mentally equipped when I'm doing these like tasks that I think I just will age better over time by doing that.
So so one decision you made was to focus more on the electrical side versus the physical side. What other decisions did you make to make sure that, like, when you're 35, 40 years old, that you weren't abusing your body?
Like I said, I think it comes down back to if you want to be somewhere, keep pushing for it. Like, I'm going to get no so many times. And a lot of the times, like, I've applied to be service manager and foreman pretty much since 21 years old. And I damn well knew I wasn't probably even going to get a call, but I have to put myself out there, because eventually you tend to wear people down. So I'm like, if I keep applying year after year for said roles, especially with the Wood Group, the 9 dealerships. So there's a lot of opportunity that comes up, and I'm putting my hat in the ring every single time. And eventually they're going to keep seeing my name and keep seeing my name. And in my mind, I was like, that's going to help them, because they're going to go, oh yeah, like this guy, he's still here. So, long-term employee, maybe there's more opportunity to now advance him. Because he's been applying for this role at 9 different dealerships for 5 years. Yeah. And again, it's making yourself uncomfortable in those situations, and, having to sit down. Like, a lot of times people go into the boss's office and they always think it's a negative thing. I'm going into the boss's office and I'm trying to start something. I'm like, hey, can we chat? I'd like to talk about this. I'd like you to send me to this. Like, what can we do here? Like, how can I advance? What do you want me to do? And again, a lot of it, you pay your dues, and a lot of it's free labor. And it's not free labor necessarily working at the dealership. It's the after hours that you want to put into things. Again, it's doing those research. Like, I was looking up a lot of the night schools where if I want to become service manager, I'm going to have to learn the front side of the business, because it's vastly different than just fixing the car. Like, all I got to do when I go to work is clock in, fix the cars, and clock out. And a lot of the times, and not everyone sees it, the boss is pretty much on call 24/7. Shop gets broken into at 2 a.m., you got to go. So I know that if that's how they're already living their lives, that's how I'm going to have to start prepping myself to do it. So again, it's coming home, and maybe instead of playing video games from the night, I'm researching how to do XYZ, or how I can prepare myself to become that general manager.
Is that what you have been doing?
Yes.
So what kind of courses? So have you taken courses outside of your work that your work is not paid for?
No, so no courses paid for, actually. A lot of it, like, it's just like self-research. And just at the times I'm at in my life, sometimes it doesn't always work out that I can go do a night class per se. But a lot of the times, like, when I present something to my company, they're more than willing to work with me on it, which is really nice. So a lot of the times, like, even being here today, right? Like, I told them about it and they were ecstatic. They're like, this is amazing. Like, you have to do this. Like, when can we get you off work to do this? Versus, again, like, if I was at a different dealership, they'd be like, if you want to do this, it's on your own time, and you should not be booking off like physical work time. You should be doing this on a weekend, because it's a weekend hobby in their mind.
Right.
So again, it's the environment that they create to basically allow you to grow. Like, they want to see you succeed.
So what's it like leaving that environment then?
It's incredibly tough.
Yeah.
I had left for basically a hiatus, about a year and a half. I got to a point in my career where I was very egotistical, and I was in my head that I was the best because I had made it to that diagnostic level. Because again, everyone thinks that that's really the hardest position. Like, across the board, everyone thinks that it's easy to replace brakes, but it's harder to figure out why they broke, per se. So I got in my mind a lot that I was just the best at everything. And, I was the end all be all, that you come to me because I'm the last in line of, if no one can fix, or if I can't fix it, no one can. So I took a step back, about 2 years ago. And I definitely needed it because it was a reality check for me that I was not the best, and that I should learn more and be accepting to learn more. And thankfully, like, they were gracious enough to take me back after about a year and a half of leaving to a different dealer. They were very opening to me, and they could see like the difference in me, and that was great. So it made leaving very, very hard. Like when I had resigned, it shed some tears because basically it is my family. Like they raised me in a lot of ways. Like I am the man I am today because of them. So it was definitely tough.
So when you say a hiatus for a year and a half, that means you quit. You went to work for another dealership that wasn't part of the group, and then you walked it back a year and a half later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. At the time,
I was picturing like you decided to like tour the world, go to Greece, tour Australia. Like no, you.
no,
Okay.
I love working. I love doing my job. It's not a job for me. It's in a sense, it's fun.
So you quit, went to work somewhere else, and then learned that you didn't know everything. How did you figure that out?
No, I learned that I wasn't the best. Obviously, like
How did you learn that?
think I just got humbled very fast that I was so comfortable there of like being a 10-year employee.
Yeah.
That it was kind of like everyone not walked on eggshells with me, but I felt like I could throw around a lot more power because I'm a long-term employee.
Okay.
And I really need to take a step back and realize, like, when I went to the new company, I was like, bottom of the totem pole. Like I was the newest guy there. Like if layoffs were to happen, I'm probably the first guy to go because I've, in my mind, been there the shortest.
Okay.
So it really made me not throw around and abuse my power that I thought I held. It really made me like, it's still the same job, the same role, same work, but I'm coming into it as the new guy, where I think I needed to prove to my now new bosses that I can do it. So it was that step back to show once again that like I can be the best.
So
you don't know that yet.
So why didn't it work out there? What brought you back?
It was actually it was a massive pay issue that had happened. There was a lot of, because you're on flat rate, right? Like you can work for 10 hours in a day and make 2 hours. You can work for 10 hours and make 100 hours. Like basically it's an endless potential to make money. And I found that like when I was clocking in, like my goal in an 8-hour day is I like to ideally do 10 hours worth of work. Whether that's through skipping lunch or you get lucky and you get a nice break where you took 5-10 minutes to diagnose it. Look, again, as long as you can go through that process, there's no issue with you only taking 10 minutes, but it's how you do your routine. But I was finding that I was putting in 8-hour days, and I write and document everything that I do just on my end to be sure that, I did said job and I'm supposed to get paid an hour. And if it doesn't show up on my pay period, at least I know it's for that job. And I found that when I was documenting all my hours, I was coming up like 20, 30 hours short at this place. And they couldn't explain why, but I knew I had done that job. Like I'm not just pulling an RO out of anywhere and just writing it down saying, hey, I made X amount of money today. And no one could explain it. And I couldn't afford to work there anymore. It was in some cases like a discrepancy of 30, 40 hours, which if you're in an 80-hour work week, that's half your pay gone. And it's pretty hard to survive off that.
Yeah. Interesting. Tell me about Baby G's.
Baby G's. So this was actually my dad's company.
Yeah.
He started it in 1988. It's actually named after him because he used to be a bouncer in Winnipeg. That's where my whole family and I grew up. And they had a bigger bouncer there and they called him the Gorilla. And my dad was the smaller version of him. My dad's about the same size as me. So they called him the Baby Gorilla. And again, bigger guy. So he kind of realized that back in the 80s, there wasn't a lot of clothing that was stylish for people of his size. So he took it upon himself to start and create his own company. This is where I get a lot of my attitude from in the work site. Like if you want something, do it. And so he created it. It went really well. He ended up selling it off to someone else and it went bankrupt about a year later. Never really thought anything of it. I was 18 actually, just digging through like some of our like memory bins that we have in the basement. I was still living at my parents' at the time. And I found Baby G's sweater. And I was too young. I was born in 98. So obviously never got to experience the aura of Baby G's.
Yeah.
So I found this and my dad told me about it. And actually at the time, my cousin was living with me and we were sharing a room and he's like, he has some of the original pieces too. So we're going back and forth. And again, I had found this one sweater and I loved it. I thought it was cool. I'm a very loud guy. I like standing out in the crowd. You know, like I don't like to tuck away into a corner, and this is what this clothing is it's loud, and you know, you got to be proud to wear it, right? And he talked about it, and just, you know, him and I were about to go to bed, and he's like, you know, one day we'll do this. Well, flash forward about 3-4 years later, my dad just started drawing again, and drawing stuff for baby G's. And he's like, you know, it's cool for him to get back into, and you know, he loves it as well. And we thought, like, why stop there? Like, why don't we actually relaunch it? And I've owned companies before. You know, I tried starting my own longboarding company at 12. You know, getting stuff shipped in from China and designing and making the boards and then selling them. And I always loved being the boss. And I think that's kind of where I get the mentality of like, I wanted to be a general manager at a dealership because that's the boss. That's the highest role. And I decided, I'm like, let's take the bull by the horns. Like, let's restart this. So we technically started it last year. It was kind of like more so a soft launch in 2024, and then 2025 was gung-ho. We started going to lifting events like powerlifting, strong men and women competitions, bodybuilding. And you know, it's starting to really gain traction. And I personally, I love it. You know, it's you get to meet a whole new aspect and lifestyle that people live that I have yet to experience, right? Like, I've never been in that community before. Like, I go to the gym, but going to the gym is just, you know, step one of this process. You know, the dedication that any of these athletes take to lift the heaviest objects, and, you know, like seeing people deadlifting 800-900 pounds. And like, I find it so fascinating, right? And going to the bodybuilding competitions and seeing how people can manipulate their physiques to like look the best. You get to meet some amazing characters, right? And you build a lot of friendship. Like, it's a new avenue that I get to go down.
Mhm.
That's just, it's great, you know?
And then how's the product received? Like, is there a lot of competition? Like, as far as like clothes that fit guys who are big, heavy, strong guys, and like men and women?
You know, yes and no. Like, as a whole, like the clothing market's fairly saturated. Like, anybody can realistically start a company, but you know, the one thing that we really wanted to focus on was like the quality and longevity of our clothing. Because again, like, I was able to find that piece from 1988, and it still looks relatively new. It's not tattered. It doesn't have holes in it. The design's not bled out. So that was the one thing that we really wanted to focus on, was like, I want to see someone wearing this hoodie in 40 years, 50 years, and it still looks like it was pretty much bought that year or relatively close, you know, and I want people to beat up our product, right? Like, I want it to last.
Because it's funny, my wife and I both have hoodies that we both and they're both not cheap, but they both like pill a lot.
Yep.
Right. And man, is that irritating after like not very many washes.
No, exactly.
Right?
And like, it takes away from what you're wearing, right? Like, you bought it because it looks good, and it does not look good when that kind of stuff happens, right? Or like, even something as simple as like the logo starts to peel off. Like, I've had a lot of clothes that are like that.
Yep.
Where like, I tell like any of these lifters now, even some of like we worked a lot with a lot of strong men, because we designed shirts that would help them in competition. So there's stuff called like grip shirts where you can use it to basically like hold the bar on your back better, or, you know, stick yourself to the bench better. So we wanted to implement that into our clothing, because originally my dad's art and design was just solely more so of a looking standpoint, and like, you want to look good and you feel good in the gym. But again, like, it's still built and robust, that it's meant for the gym. You know, where I'm kind of taking the approach of like, this can be an everyday lifestyle hoodie, but it's still rugged and built to last in the gym, and like, focus on the quality of it more so than anything.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the logo on your shirt, and it looks thicker. Right.
Yeah,
like it can
very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of like, we work with silicone a lot. And some of like our t-shirts alone, some of them, like a large weighs about 2.5 pounds.
Yeah.
And like that's heavy clothing. But again, like, bringing in that quality of it, like, we want to like a standard double thickness t-shirt, because we don't want it to shrink over time. We don't want it to tear because you caught it on the corner of a desk. You know, like, that's where I find a lot of like the current clothes that I've been wearing, they're fragile almost. Like, they're not, it's just built for quantity over quality. And, you know, in a year, just go buy the same shirt because it's still available.
Yeah.
But just keep replenishing and refitting, right? Whereas like, what we're focused on is, let's make sure like it's a one-stop shop. You bought it and it's going to last you until you get rid of it, you know? And if you do rip it, like I always tell any of the people that we meet in person or that order our clothes, I'm like, if you have any issues, like if the logo starts falling off, I'm sending you a new one. But then that gives me the opportunity to go back to the drawing board and go, okay, so like this just instantly fell off. Was this a one-off defect, or are we not making these strong enough, thick enough, like, you know, good enough?
Is that the Ford process kind of influenced the Baby G's model then?
No, that's fully my dad, and again, like we still have clothes from the 80s that have lasted. It's been 30 years. How do we accomplish that now?
Yeah.
Because again, like right now, like in the consumer market, it's a lot of like quick consumption. And that comes from anything from TikTok to clothing to cars, like even like cars nowadays, right? Like this does relate back to that Ford aspect. Like we see a lot of like 1990s and early 2000s vehicles lasting on the road that people have been driving for 14, 15, 16 years. Whereas a lot of people nowadays, and I'm also guilty of this myself, like you swap vehicles once a year almost sometimes, right? Like it's
But I don't want to own one of these newer vehicles for a long period of time because I'm scared that, like, for all the reasons you mentioned, like,
oh,
I'm not
absolutely.
worried
Yeah.
about the engine breaking. I'm worried about all the electronics in here.
Yeah.
And just in my experience and what you're echoing, like, you end up 40, 50 hours of troubleshooting because, like, a wire as part of a bundle is broken somewhere,
Oh yeah.
right? And like, I love the idea of like just going back and like for our company on the mechanical side, we buy like GMC Savannas,
Yep.
right? And like, oh yeah, you buying like the Mercedes? No, right? Like, oh man, you excited about the new transits? No,
Yeah.
like just that old vehicle that everybody can maintain, right? Like there's no features, like it might not be as fuel efficient as some of the new stuff, but whatever you lose on that, you make up in the fact that it's never in the shop. Like,
Oh,
nothing to break.
absolutely. Yep. But also like there is that aspect of it though where if you just keep going through all of your vehicles like year after year after year, like I find that like it's exciting to always have something new and shiny and bright. But also then there's less responsibility in it. Like I see people tend to treat things that are easily replaceable far worse because it's as simple as throw it out and get a new one.
Yeah.
Right. Like I want to see like if you're gonna switch vehicles every year, I want to see you like in the same hoodie, for that 2060 vehicle that you just bought when you bought this back in 2020.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's what we're shooting for.
And I like it. Like I think that like that's something that's missing across every aspect of our society is anybody trying to build anything for longevity with that future in mind. And
Yeah.
like whether it's a like customer service, right? Like recognize that you want that client for life, right? Like from a manufacturing standpoint, that like, hey, I want the shirt to last. I don't want the logo to fall apart,
Mhm.
right? And I also don't believe that it, like as a like as a number relative to like a top like gross sale, that making that logo thicker, it's not $15 more,
No.
right? Like and so you start looking at it going like we had no problem spending 35, 45, 60 bucks, $80. Like you forget where my hoodie is right now, but it's an Ovechkin hoodie that I bought in Washington.
Yep.
I think I paid like $80 US for it.
Yep.
Making that logo stand the test of time, that hoodie stand the test of time probably costs $5 more, maybe. I don't know. Like what does it cost more in the like from a procurement standpoint to make a t-shirt double thickness?
Really it's honestly not much to basically like up your quality and your standards for it. Does it cost more? Absolutely. And it's relative to like what you're working on and doing, right? Because and it's subjective to sizing as well. So like there's never a specific number you can come across the board of like an extra small to it. Could we go up to 7XL? Because we got some big people that wear our stuff. Obviously the 7XL logo is probably the same size as the extra small t-shirt. So like the printing cost may differ.
Yep.
But again, like we more so take it upon ourselves to not increase the price of our product. We'll just take the hit and not make as much profit because again, I think we'll have a longer customer base if we just provide them something quality. And a lot of our customers right now, like they own almost every single one of our pieces. And that's the number one thing that they keep coming back to us about is like the quality, the fit, and the feel, right? They want something that when they're rubbing a bar across their back because they're doing a 400 or 500 pound squat, it tends to tear and rip the material. That's not happening with ours,
Nice.
and it's nice to hear that because that also then translates to they're going to tell their friends that you should start wearing Baby G's because I've now absolutely beat this shirt beyond existence and it still looks like it just took it out of the box. Whereas from the same price point, like I've bought like this hoodie is $90. I've bought hoodies that are more expensive that my dog has like nails and he runs up against it or jumps on me and says hi and it's torn instantly. And like, to me, that's $100 gone.
Yeah.
Because like I still will wear it, but that's to me, it's become more of like a shop. I'm not wearing this out anymore because I'm in now tattered clothes and that's not the look that I want to go for.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, like I can roll and wrestle with him for an hour, and it's not poking through at all.
That's awesome. I like it. So as we kind of come towards an end, we'll do some quick like fastball questions.
Yeah.
What is one thing in the industry, right, that when you're coming up as an apprentice that you're like, yeah, this is great, let's do more of it?
Yeah, I don't think there's an industry standard for that. I think what people need to realize, reach out more if you want more. And I love to like highlight that to especially all the younger people, because in my case and standpoint, like again, I went through schooling in high school. Like I wrote my first year exam. Like, be open to pushing yourself and just don't take no for an answer.
I like that.
Yeah.
What's something that the industry does that you've either like seen or heard about? They like, this really just needs to leave the industry. We shouldn't be doing this at all.
I think schooling needs to be modernized to an extent. Even when I went through school, granted, we only spent a week on it, because school is very, it's escalated. I was in there for 2 months at a time, and then you go back, you do your hours, and you go back again. I think 2 months is too short. I think you need to give people the ability to learn better, for a little bit longer, because since it's so condensed, you have to learn still the same 20 modules in a 2-month standpoint, when schooling, it was still 2 months 10 years ago, but there was only 15 modules to learn. And it's just kind of cleaning up what you learn. Like, for instance, I learned about carburetors. I haven't touched one in the dealership ever. I haven't even seen a carbureted car come into a dealership. And granted, like obviously there's private shops, so there is the usability for that knowledge in other aspects. But if you're going to a more specialty shop like that, for instance, with carburetors, you're likely going to learn that more so on the job. Whereas we spent a week on it in school when we still have 19 other modules to touch that are actually relevant to the job. So it's either kind of extend the schooling so you can fit it in and allow more time for people to learn, or in a sense, trimming the fat away from what's relevant in our industry nowadays.
I'm thinking as well then, what are your thoughts on like expanding education beyond like, because especially with an apprenticeship, you go there for 4 years.
Yep.
Right. And then you never go back to school again and there's nothing ongoing. What are your thoughts on like extending other educational opportunities like outside of like dealerships or like on the job learning?
I think it would be great. I think the way that Ford does it is actually really refreshing. Again, they have their own school and their own courses that they teach, where again, like you go to school for a catch up of like 4 or 5 days. It's almost like a mini vacation in the sense where you get to get off the tools and you get to go learn something, but it is relevant to your job and it keeps you up to speed. So when you're doing those diagnostics and you're working on those vehicles, you now have that knowledge because, I'll be honest, like through the apprenticeship and like the government training, you're still learning technologies where they don't know what these like advanced computer or hybrid transmissions are per se. But Ford's giving their technicians and their employees the ability to learn more about that to keep you relevant in your job. And I think it would be nice to see the availability for more schooling, like as a government whole, for people to again, like catch their knowledge up on, 2026 now.
If you're a young girl trying to get like graduating high school, like part of the rap, maybe not part of the rap, and you're trying to get into the automotive industry, what would your encouragement or advice be to, like, I think it could probably apply to guys too, but I think I've interviewed a couple of girls who are trying to get in and it's challenging for them.
I think a lot of the challenge, because we do have 3 girls at our work currently, and they've all been very successful. But I think, especially from a female standpoint, you got to have a little bit of a thicker skin. And even for the guys as well, like, again, coming in very green at 16, like, and talking to people in high school and like how you were treated by teachers and your other, students. It's very like almost innocent and very nice. Whereas when you get into any trade, people can be a lot more harsh, and there's a lot more like get out of my face, get out of my bay, and you can't take that personally. And I think females in like the shop talk environment, like there is a lot of like, dirty jokes or comments being made. It's not directed towards really anybody ever. But again, you do have to build a little bit of resilience to it.
And you found that too, like as a 16-year-old?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. There was a lot of words that I've never heard before, being yelled and said. And, just like, it's a shop, it's a trade. people are goofy. People are weird. Like it's a loud environment. Like, again, it's not like a desk job where you're kind of in your own cubicle doing your own thing. It's an open shop. So you can hear the guy 10 bays down from you talking about XYZ. And then, an impact gun goes off and people are breaking tires and screaming because they just, pinch their hand in something. Like it's a very overwhelming environment to someone that's very new into it and hasn't experienced anything like it.
How do they differentiate themselves, or how does someone differentiate themselves to get into the shop in the first place? Like from that, like they're not employed, they're trying to drop off resumes, or like they're trying to get a call back. What's the differentiator? Like at the Wood Group, how do they select someone with no experience who gets the opportunity to start?
I think they really look at like you're willing and wanting. Like, do you want to be here? Yeah, are you kind of more so being forced to be here because you need a job? And like they might still hire you, but that's when, again, you stay at that shop cleaner mentality for a year because you're just complacent with where you are and what you're doing, and you're just waiting for your handout. I think they're looking, especially just to get into the door, they want to see that you're actively wanting to do something. Regardless of what it is, you can be a lot attendant, a wash bay, a technician, an advisor. You need to show like your ambition to, I want to do this job. And maybe then once you get in, highlight that you want to move and advance and you want to be better. Because usually the opportunities are presented more so when you show that encouragement to them that, hey, let's move forward.
I like that. I think there's a lot of people, especially trying to get into the industry in general across all trades.
Yeah.
They just like don't know how to differentiate themselves.
Yeah, when it's a lot of like, it's an unknown, so you're scared. I was scared when I started too. Like, again, not even having a license, like even having to tell the guy, like a journeyman would come up to me, like, pull this in for me, if that's my job, I'm the hourly kid, like, let's help you out. And I had to be able to tell them no, because I can't drive, but that's scary because I've never met this person. They're also, 20 plus years older than me, and they don't even know my name. They're just, hey, who is? And, you still have to have the ability, and you should feel comfortable enough to say no.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much. I really appreciate your time here.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the PeopleBuilt podcast with John Wiehler. For more episodes, visit peoplebuilt.ca.